I stumbled across a magazine a couple days ago with a bunch of great photos of the Grateful Dead from back in the day, and I thought maybe I would share it with you guys. It's American Photo Magazine. They did a special commemorative edition after Jerry Garcia passed away. It says Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, the photographs. And they got together with some photographers that were closely associated with the Dead, great photographers. And the whole thing, this whole magazine, is photos of the Dead back in the day. There's a Bob Dylan quote I want to share with you guys about Jerry Garcia. He was a good one to talk about Garcia. I always enjoy whenever Bob Dylan drops a quote about Jerry or the Dead, since they were friends, bandmates, you know, and Bob was a legitimate fan of the Dead. This is Bob Dylan. It says, "To me, he wasn't only a musician and friend, he was more like a big brother who taught and showed me more than he'll ever know. His playing was moody, awesome, sophisticated, hypnotic, and subtle. There's no way to convey the loss." That's Bob Dylan after Jerry Garcia passing away. There's a bunch of great photography of the Grateful Dead all through this from back in the day, and they sprinkled in some quotes from people who were close to the Dead, friends, you know, or peers or whatever. But there's one particular Jerry Garcia quote that just caught my eye. And, you know, there's that whole thing about how the Dead supposedly were not an album thing. You know, they weren't into making albums. They were into playing live. And the tapes that the audience made were the real thing. I particularly think they hit it out of the park on a couple albums myself, but that's neither here nor there. But Jerry was very self-aware and understood that, you know, he thought that they were a live band, and they weren't really into the studio that much. And there's a quote, I think, that just explains that perfectly from Jerry. This is Jerry Garcia. It says, "That's what we do, is play for people, warm human bodies. We don't play so good for machines." And I stepped back for a second and kind of soaked that in, and there's just something about when you're on, you know, when you're on the stage in the moment you're playing, it's temporary. It'll be gone as soon as you've done it. That's the beautiful thing. That's one argument I have against taping live shows and all of that, is it's for the people who were right there in that moment, and then the moment's gone. And when that pressure is off, anything can happen because you're not worried about messing this or that up. When you're in the studio, because you're playing for people, warm bodies, and you're experiencing it and getting something back from them immediately. When you're in the studio, it's forever. And there aren't those people there, and you get in your head really bad, and you're playing for the machines that are recording it. And a lot of people are very good at getting past that or whatever. The Dead kind of believed they couldn't get past that so well. That struck me as very insightful into Jerry and his thoughts and about recording versus playing live and all of that. I'm curious what you think about that. It's all right to disagree with him, but it's all right for Jerry Garcia to say exactly what he thinks. I'm going to get a little bit opinionated here. There's this great photo taken by Jim Marshall, legendary photographer, at the free concert on Haight Street in 1967. I'm not sure where to start on this, but I think this photo is absolutely gorgeous in so many ways. If there's anything good about live music photography, this is it right here. Is Jim Marshall understood. A lot of people that were there that day were probably with their big telephoto lenses trying to get up really close into band members' faces, you know, and catch a facial expression. You could see their pores and all of that stuff. And that's not the story. That's not what was happening that day. What was happening was these people coming out to see the Grateful Dead. This is freaking amazing. This is history happening right here. And it doesn't matter that you barely get half of Jerry Garcia's face right there. Jerry Garcia is not the story. These people are. This happening, this event taking place that all of these people are part of. This is history. This is like Walker Evans type stuff right here. This is absolutely beautiful, beautiful photography. And talk about catching a moment. And it doesn't matter, you know, how tack sharp things are. It doesn't matter, you know, all the technical this or that or whatever. There's motion and there's beauty in this photo. And I don't know. I think this is right. It's what people get wrong about live photography so much, is the story is not on stage. The story is the people, the scene happening out there. And I love that Jim Marshall caught that. He was fortunate enough to be close to them to get on stage to catch it. But it's an absolutely beautiful photo, I think. That's my opinion. You can disagree with me. You have a right to be wrong. It's all right. We can still be friends. So this is from the magazine about Jim Marshall. It says, having made his final payment on a Leica M2 camera in 1961, Jim Marshall left his home in San Francisco's Fillmore district and moved to New York to work as a photographer. After 2 years shooting blues musicians in the burgeoning folk scene in Greenwich Village, he figured he had the contacts he needed and moved back home. It was a shrewd decision. In 1965, all the world's music attention had turned to rock and roll, and San Francisco was the music's mecca. Central to the scene was a band formed by another native of the city, Jerry Garcia. Marshall wasted no time making pictures of the Grateful Dead. Jerry had that charisma, that Garcia mystique, he says. He was almost like a holy man. This is Jim Marshall. Marshall, who classified himself first and foremost as a photojournalist, depended on unlimited access to make intimate, behind-the-scenes pictures rather than staged portraits. His incomparable body of work prompted Annie Leibovitz to call him the rock and roll photographer. And intimacy was what the Dead was all about. The music world isn't the same anymore, says Marshall, who still lives in San Francisco. There's very little humanity left in it. The Dead were different. Jerry was the heart and soul of that band, and I don't think it'll ever be the same. I'm going to miss the music. That's Jim Marshall. Great photographer. This is also a beautiful Jim Marshall photo of Jerry backstage. In the film world, they would refer to this negative space here of Jerry in the foreground, and you get his reflection back here. Anything in the front of the camera like that, they refer to it as shooting dirty, and I really like it. I think it brings life into things when there's foreground. They just call it shooting dirty. I try to do as much of that as I can, but I love the decision Jim Marshall made to leave himself in the photo. That's just a decision that I wouldn't have done, you know, and maybe at the time it might have messed some things up, but for history's sake, it really added. I think it's beautiful that he's in there. It would have been easy just to like hide back, to go off to the side a little bit and remove yourself from the reflection. And I also dig the real faint up here by the light bulb, avoid the draft. Little sign of the times right there. Another great photographer showcased in here is Herb Green. We've all seen this photo. I love this one. I love that Jerry is taking the American flag. And I remember asking Wayne Kramer once from MC5. I was lucky enough to get to know Wayne and become friends with him. I was like, why did you paint your Strat American flag, you know, colors? And he says, because I'm an American. You know, I believe in freedom. I believe in democracy. And why should Nixon and all the warmongers be able to have that? Why can't I claim that also? And it was one of those moments of learning. And it appears that Jerry was looking at it the same way. This is what the editors wrote about Herb Green. Herb Green was a staff photographer for a San Francisco department store when the post-Beatle subculture took root in the Haight. It was either go to Vietnam or go to Haight-Ashbury, he says. I knew where I belonged. Green's relationship with the Dead began in the earliest years. I loved folk music, and that's how I met Garcia. I heard a bluegrass band playing, and I walked in, and there he was. That's when he was with the Sleepy Hollow Hog Stompers. That's a mouthful for you. The Sleepy Hollow Hog Stompers. As the San Francisco sound developed, so did Green's professional stature. He provided the shots used in the cover collage for the Grateful Dead's 1967 debut album, but more significantly to him, are his memories of his friend. He says, I loved Jerry Garcia. His humility was amazing. He was a shining symbol of freedom. That's Herb Green talking about Jerry Garcia. I also want to mention this beautiful moment Herb Green caught Bob Dylan and the Grateful Dead having their picture taken. There's a lot of personality going on here. There's a lot that you can tell of the Dead are just some guys having some fun. Like, why the hell do we got to do this photo thing again? And then there's Bob Dylan in the middle, who has been through, he's been through it a couple times and came out the other side not wanting to mess with such things. And he's just staring at the photographer, realizing the first time he makes some stupid face, that's probably the one that's going to be in a magazine or something. So he's just kind of staying in control of the situation. Very Bob and very much the Dead. They also show some photographs of Bob Seidemann. I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think I am. I apologize if I'm not. I'm not completely sure why, but for me personally, this photo just kind of screams psychedelia to me in ways that, without having all of the stereotypical psychedelic things involved, we'll say. But this photo here, when they took it, I'm guessing it looks like the people are backlit on the street. This is from a photographer's perspective. I'm going to tell you what I think's happening here. It's backlit, and there are people holding some kind of reflective things, probably mirrors, shining the light in the band members' faces, so it illuminates them. Because when you're backlit, everything on the front is going to be dark, which is a nice thing. I prefer to shoot backlit. This is a photographer's perspective to tell you a little bit of what's happening here. Back in the days before Photoshop, when people went into dark rooms and became humbled horribly, like me and my buddy Todd Fox, we used to struggle to get good images. And you can tell on this picture here, what they would do was, like, each band member, they would have to cut out with a razor blade these masks that would go around. So the lights coming down from the top through a negative onto a sheet of paper, you would control which areas of the photo got how much light. So they would be placing something shaped like the band member over the top of it and moving it slightly so it wouldn't be hard. And these little lights right here are when it's kind of I'm not putting down the photographer at all. I don't mean that. But these are little accidents, these little outlines or whatever. And it would usually be something that you would be like, oh man, I can't use that or whatever. But it's the Grateful Dead. You're in this new era. You've got these guys who are on stage making mistakes, and it's kind of like, well, that was interesting. What if we do this? And the rules are different. And I think this photograph goes along with that perfectly. The outline from the dark room, I think that just works perfectly with this. It's like these space guys being beamed in. It's that psychedelia thing that I talked about earlier. I love it. I love the reflections in Jerry's glasses from the mirror that shined on it. There's so much that's right to me about this. Now, as soon as Photoshop came around, all of those years we're talking about technical expertise that is unimaginable how good these people were in the dark room and how many years it took to get halfway decent at it and how much effort. And then Photoshop, and all of a sudden you have a undo button, and average people like myself can get great results. Much appreciation to Bob here. It says, Bob Seidemann was working in New York as a color lab technician in the early 1960s when he fell under the spell of the beatniks and followed the road to San Francisco. He landed in Haight-Ashbury in 1965, months before the Grateful Dead played their first show at Big Nig's Acid Test in San Jose. He says, I was using the Dead as actors, he says of his widely acclaimed photo of the band in Daly Street. That's the photo that I was just showing you right here. At the time, I had to push them out of the door Then find 5 freaks to hold hand mirrors to shine in their faces. At the time, the Grateful Dead were more like a cowboy act, and I made them look like they had just landed in a flying saucer and the spaceship was parked on the other side of those houses. That's exactly what the feeling I get. Seideman's relationship with the Dead culminated in his work as creative director for the 20th anniversary celebration in 1985. There's also some wonderful portraits from Baron Volman. Like I said, I'm hoping I get this right. Volman, I believe, is how you would pronounce that. I don't think it's Woman. I apologize if I'm wrong. Sometimes you go your whole life and you read a name and you've never heard anybody say it out loud. So I'm gonna guess Baron Volman. And some wonderful portraits. Says, as the first chief photographer for Rolling Stone magazine, Volman's initial assignment was to shoot the marijuana raid on the Grateful Dead's home in October 1967. I covered the press conference and the bust, and then they said, go get a group shot. So I went over to 710 Ashbury, and all the band's friends, families, lawyers, and groupies were in the house. Just getting them out for 5 minutes was a job, and I was terrified because they were goofing around and weren't taking anything seriously. And Pigpen had a rifle. Nobody knew what the hell Rolling Stone was then, and they were doing me a favor. They kept saying, come on, Baron, take the picture, hurry. I was lucky to get the shot. Less well known is a series of portraits Volman made in 1969. Above and on the following pages. The music and the spirit of the Dead, says Volman, still touch a hope that we can get along with one another. It's Baron Volman. The last photographer they feature is Jay Blakesberg, and there's some beautiful photos here of Jerry. With this one here, in particular, is this picture of Jerry and Ashley Judd. Jerry had a really expressive face, and I don't know, maybe it was his humility or whatever to just, and feel comfortable with just like being himself, but he had a lot of different expressions. I really love the one here. And Ashley's beautiful. There's depth in this photo. There's more foreground here. It's not quite shooting dirty, but it's nice having the foreground. Just a beautiful photo. There's a film grain in a lot of these where I'm thinking this might be a Tri-X film, judging by the film grain, but it's just so much beauty and character in it. There's a photo here of some people dancing to the Dead, and I honestly thought this guy right here and right here was Jello Biafra. I paused for a second and was very confused, and I don't know, maybe Jello's a Deadhead. I don't think so, but who knows. It says, in 1976, Jay Blakesberg saw for the first time the photographs of the San Francisco psychedelic scene by Herb Green and Jim Marshall. And that's when he decided to become a photographer. He went to his first Grateful Dead show in 1977, and by his own admission, his life hasn't been the same since. He says, I'm a historian. I feel like I'm capturing a moment of history that will never be repeated again, but that will live on in my pictures. For me, this is one of the most important things. Based in San Francisco, Blakeberg's work appears regularly in Rolling Stone, musician, and guitar player, and his album art for several major labels. But photographing the Grateful Dead has been a singular experience for him. I always wanted Garcia to come across as being warm and intense and piercing. I think he had a great smile and such an interesting face. I agree with you, Jay. I definitely agree with you. I saw quite a few issues of this on eBay for $5, $10, $15. It's kind of weird how a magazine can be around for 31 years and you get on eBay and there's a bunch of different copies on there. If you're a Dead fan or a collector and just want something to sit on the end table or whatever and thumb through, this is well worth spending 10 or 15 bucks on, and I think you'll enjoy it. There's so much that I haven't shown in here. And I want to point out one thing. Some of the reproductions, since it's a magazine, some of the reproductions of the photos are a little bit soft. The contrast is pretty good and all of that, but considering it's a photo magazine, it was a little bit soft, but it was really expensive to make high quality reproductions of photos, in magazines then. And they did a good job with it, I thought, and they did a great job of getting great photographers. I'm guessing that I only point this out because I'm guessing when the photographers got it and looked at it back then, they would probably be like, I wish that was a little this, because it didn't look like their original thing. There's a photography magazine called Lens Work. There's just absolutely gorgeous photos, gorgeous. And they spent a bunch of money on the reproductions. And like right around here in the late 90s, I was subscribed for a few years. And they never talked about gear, always talked about art. Great magazine, beautiful thing. And so I used to buy a lot of these. I would go to the local library and sit around reading photo magazines before I could afford to subscribe to them. But I would go look at all the photos and all of that, and I'd go just to see. So I'm surprised I never saw this back then. And then I started subscribing to some of them that talked about art more than gear back in the late 90s or whatever. Like I said, you might think about picking up a copy on eBay if you're into that. If you're not, it's no big deal. Somebody who appreciates it will get it. And if you dig Jerry Garcia and you want to see some really cool stuff, I was invited a year or so ago to do a private walkthrough at the Bluegrass Hall of Fame. They have a Jerry Garcia exhibit about his time playing bluegrass and string band, folk music and stuff before the Dead. It's a great exhibit, and they gave me a private walkthrough, and me and my buddy Todd Fox filmed it, and I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. Not enough people saw it, but I think if you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely dig that. Go check it out. I appreciate you all being here, and I'll see you somewhere down the road. Much love to you.